Watching Stranger Things sometimes feels like someone blasting the contents of an abandoned Blockbuster video straight into my hippocampus with a t-shirt cannon.
Ghostbusters!
Karate Kid.
It's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And that's no coincidence. According to the Stranger Things show Bible, creators Matt and Ross Duffer have always seen their show as, quote, a love letter to Steven Spielberg and Stephen King, in the same subtle way that Annie Wilkes writes a love letter to Paul Sheldon's legs.
God, I love you.
A show Bible is what creators use to pitch an idea to networks and streaming platforms. It's fun to study which tidbits eventually made it into the show and which were left out. For example, the Duffer Brothers said that the 80s references, quote, must never overwhelm the story or characters. Yeah, how'd that one work out?
Sweeter, bolder, better.
But the most interesting detail is right on the front page, namely, well, the name. Montauk refers to both a little resort town on Long Island, where the show was supposed to take place, and a very real, absolutely batshit conspiracy theory that makes QAnon look like a game of friggin' Wordle. So let's get into the bonkers, the embarrassing, the unbelievable bits of canon that'll probably get us all on a government watch list just for thinking about it. We're talking brainwashed child armies, Jesus Christ blood donor, and aliens getting all cliquey in the workplace. This is CanonBall. After poring over the show Bible and projecting a metric ton of conspiracy theory videos into my impressionable brain, here are 4 full-on cuckoo bananas conspiracy theories that legions of weirdos actually believe, baked right into the main plot of Stranger Things. Conspiracy number 4, a government plot to develop an army of prepubescent supersoldiers. The Montauk Project is the cursed offspring of 2 better-known conspiracy theories, both of which are name-checked in the show Bible, Project MKUltra and the Philadelphia Experiment. The Philadelphia Experiment was popularized by a 1984 movie of the same name. Weirdos who subscribe to this theory believe that the US Navy successfully invisibilized one of their ships, the USS Eldridge, ever so briefly. But when it reappeared, some of the sailors had been grotesquely fused inside the walls of the ship.
This wasn't supposed to happen, Jimmy.
Those who were left intact had scrambled brains, thanks to the ship briefly blipping into a dimension in which time doesn't exist.
Well, all that stuff I told the doctors back there, you know, about time in 1943, do you believe it?
I'm sure they're fine now. Veterans have top-notch mental health support services. Dab. Now that's bonkers, but somehow MKUltra is way nuttier because it's actually completely real. In the 1970s, Congress caught wind that the CIA had been conducting ill-advised mind control experiments for decades. The CIA, ever the empaths, had noticed prisoners of war coming back just a little worse for wear. The wokest hippies called this shell shock, and today we call it PTSD. But the United States government drew the conclusion that the Russians must have mastered mind control, and they wanted in. The CIA recruited a bunch of Nazi torture specialists and spent at least $10 million dosing each other and unwitting civilians with enough LSD to make an elephant see God. Again, that all really happened. God is an elephant. Okay, not that part. Anyway, those 2 theories got it on and popped out the Montauk Project. This top-secret experiment supposedly began when a group of MKUltra researchers appealed to Congress to let them carry on with their most harebrained and dangerous experiments. Picture Wile E. Coyote asking for a promotion. Congress rightfully told them to f right off, so they pitched it to the Department of Defense, who smashed that MF like button and gave them $10 billion in stolen Nazi gold, where you or I might see a wasteland of paranoia and red string. The Duffer Brothers saw profit. Right there in the show Bible, they say, everyone loves a good conspiracy. We've seen the most well-known sensationalized on film and television many times before, but the Montauk Project remains untapped, and tap it they did. Elle's mother is canonically an MKUltra test subject. This directly caused her special abilities and all the other half-science, half-magic shenanigans that go on in this story. According to the show Bible, the Montauk Project involved alien contact, time travel, telepathy, alternate dimensions, mutant monsters, and that's really just the tip of the iceberg. People also claimed the project was responsible for the Jersey Devil, the Men in Black, even the internet.
Email.
And I guess by extension, Mr. Bean NFTs. But at the heart of the experiments, like Stranger Things itself, was kidnapped children and telekinesis. The government initially wanted to train kids to fly drones with their brains, but soon found out that with enough energy, they could manipulate the very fabric of space-time. How do we know all this stuff about the Montauk Project? Thanks to dubious first-hand accounts from a small handful of con artists. The ringleader, this certified f***ing weirdo named Preston Nichols, cracked the whole thing wide open when he broke into a secret lab hiding in plain sight. And that brings us to conspiracy number 3, a government black site hidden in a small town. In the show, the government does all its freaky shit here at the Hawkins Laboratory, smack in the middle of fictional cornfield, USA. In real life, the government supposedly does its freakiest shit right out in the open, specifically in Montauk, a Long Island resort town not 3 hours from the Times Square M&M store. Nichols' account goes something like this. As a lowly engineer at an electronics defense company, he worked with a group of psychics for some reason. He noticed their psychic powers would all kinda conk out at the same time every day. Determined to figure out the cause, he strapped a makeshift antenna to his car and followed a series of powerful signals straight to Montauk Air Force Base, aka Camp Hero. Just like Hawkins' lab in the show, Camp Hero in real life was built in World War II, expanded during the Cold War, and then sort of fell into disrepair in the decades that followed. At least, that's the official story. Nichols says that when he busted down the doors and started exploring, he began having strange flashbacks to all sorts of shady experiments. He then bumped into a homeless man who claimed to have worked there on clandestine military experiments. And oh yeah, he claimed Nichols himself also worked there.
What are the odds?
Nichols soon came to learn that he had essentially been severanced and was living 2 parallel lives. One as a low-level grunt, the other as a high-level psychic torturer at a government black site. Couple questions. Does he get 2 401ks for that? And follow up, can I have one? There are a few things we know about Camp Hero in real life, according to the locals. It's a generic government campus, hiding a vast underground labyrinth below, set in the middle of the woods and inexplicably guarded by military police. Its most recognizable feature, and the source of its most paranoid urban legends, is this gigantic radar dish perched at the top of one of its buildings. Stranger Things actually directly references the dish, with this field of suspicious satellite dishes on the top of Hawkins' lab. In real life, the dish was built to detect enemy warplanes during World War II, but the technology eventually became obsolete. If you're wondering why the US government would bother to maintain this spooky sci-fi mantelpiece, that's where the Philadelphia experiment comes in. According to this book, 2 of Nichols' time-traveling psychic cronies, Alfred Bielek and Duncan Cameron, claim to have been on the USS Eldridge when it was invisibilized, but they jumped overboard at just the right time and landed in a wormhole. That wormhole was powered by none other than the big-ass dish at Camp Hero. They claimed they were jettisoned 40 years into the future. After they caught the next wormhole back to their time, they decided they had to shut down the Montauk Project for good. Nichols commanded Cameron to summon a, quote, big hairy beast to destroy the facility and everyone in it. Is any of this sounding familiar? It should. A horrific monster devouring a gaggle of government scientists, tears in the space-time continuum. But first, we need to explain who, in the show and in the conspiracy, is actually capable of this varsity-level telekinesis. It always seems to be precocious kids. Conspiracy number 2. 11 is based on a very real, very weird dude. The show Bible explains that Elle was kidnapped from her mom, who, again, was an MKUltra test subject while she was pregnant. This, naturally, gave Elle a prenatal dose of psychedelic drugs and brain training, priming her to be an all-star telepath. Once again, this is remarkably similar to the Montauk Project conspiracy, which posits that the government recruited its psychedelic child army by kidnapping youths, specifically runaways and the children of drug addicts. Incredibly, several people in real life have come forward to say that they were part of the experiments. They even have a name for themselves, the Montauk Kids, which sounds more like a John Mulaney side project than a child army.
I stayed up late trying on clothes I already own and I didn't prepare and I failed.
Now, these folks weren't actually kidnapped and brainwashed by the government as children. No, they were brainwashed by Nichols as adults. Nichols was a great storyteller and an even better grifter, and made the rounds at various conspiracy conferences for years. He devised some up deprogramming therapy for these former Montauk kids. He'd reportedly massage them while they unearthed their repressed memories until they reached, let's say, a thrilling climax. I told you, it's fucked up. He's dead now. Anyway, the first and most vocal Montauk kid was our old friend Duncan Cameron. The guy who jumped off the ship into a wormhole? There's no doubt that this guy is the real-life 11. Cameron, like Nichols, claimed to have begun uncovering repressed memories the moment he stepped into the bowels of Camp Hero, not unlike 11's frequent flashbacks. Furthermore, Cameron makes it clear that he was kind of the alpha brain jock. He was able to withstand severe mental and psychic torture more than any of his peers, but would occasionally break down physically. Sounds a lot like 11's nosebleeds every time she flexes her brain pecs. In the show, it's clear that there are at least 10 other kids who are raised and trained alongside 11, hence, her name. I'm math good, but 11 is clearly Papa's favorite, just as Cameron is Nichols' favorite. That favoritism led to tragedy in Nichols' case, and we have good reason to believe the exact same thing happened to Elle as a kid. So let's look at the similarities. Elle and Cameron are both at the top of their class of brainwashed, militarized youth. Elle is able to move shit around with her brain, while Cameron could actually kinda 3D print objects out of thin air just by thinking of them. 11 had that dunk tank that seemed to enhance her powers, while Cameron described something he calls the Montauk chair. Basically an electric chair designed to tap into that hulking radar dish and zap him full of brain creatine. And there's one far more sinister thing they have in common. Both were compelled by their captor/father figure to unleash a horrid evil into the world. Conspiracy number 1, a government mind control experiment summoned a hideous beast from a wormhole. For a while, this slimy little homunculus was the boogeyman of Stranger Things. We eventually learned that the Demogorgon broke out of his own dimension because of 11. She was on assignment one day, spying on the Russians in the Upside Down, when she saw this miserable creature. Papa instructed her to make contact, and when she did, the Demogorgon sliced through the space-time continuum to wreak havoc on Hawkins. Papa made Elle contact the Demogorgon, just like Nichols forced Cameron to summon the big hairy beast. Specifically, Nichols activated him by saying, quote, "The time is now," which was his Manchurian Candidate trigger word that prompted him to create a thought form, which they called Junior.
He's pregnant.
And kids, never name your thought forms unless you're prepared to become emotionally attached. Junior went on to kill all those NPCs while Nichols went and destroyed a bunch of computers. When the dirty work was done, Cameron tried to turn the beast off, but found he'd lost control. It took Nichols literally hacking the power cables to pieces with a hatchet to finally make the beast disappear. That's because the beast had been getting power-ups from the radar dish in the future. The biggest nerds among you may recognize that as the exact plot of the 1984 film The Philadelphia Experiment. Well, there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for that. The movie, they claim, is about them. For his part, Bialik denied it for years before changing his tune, presumably after a breakthrough signature Nichols massage session. In fact, Bialik and Cameron aren't just shipmates, they're brothers. How is that possible? What with the age difference and the fact that they're just not brothers? Well, Bialik says his dabbling in time travel has left him with a few odd side effects, including multiple names and birthdays. Now let's talk wormholes. In the show, Elle's powers are often used to create portals to and from the Upside Down. The government uses those portals to spy on the Ruskies. The Demogorgon uses them to kidnap children, and it f***s this guy's pumpkin patch up something awful. It's not unimportant, but compared to the Montauk Project, it's certainly not living up to its full potential. First of all, the theory contends that Montauk itself has been an interdimensional vortex for millennia. The idea of the gate being location-specific leaked into the show, too. The Russians developed the technology to create their own portal, but find out that they can't do it unless they're in Hawkins' goddamn Indiana. Maybe the portal runs on corn, or like Midwestern emo vibes? But earthly warfare is small potatoes. Nichols and Cameron have had all kinds of fun in that hole. Remember, Cameron used it like a time-traveling express bus to and from the USS Eldridge. Nichols once sent a guy on a mission back in time to murder Jesus, steal his blood, and then warp to a temple on Mars.
We have right now the engine to our time device.
Nichols said it was also regularly used to forge a brain trust with aliens.
The aliens didn't like me.
He didn't work with them very often, but other specialists had a great working relationship with the Greys.
They kept calling me a Pleiad dog.
The aliens would give them incredibly advanced technology, including that Montauk chair, and all they wanted in return was, oh, the dead bodies of human children. Yeah, the aliens found child cadavers especially nutritious. They wouldn't consume them, per se, but rather they'd make a slurry out of their bodies and soak in it like a big gross sauna to absorb their hormones. Anyway, that's it. I hope you can still enjoy all the psychic child murder, you sickos. Thanks for watching this episode of CanonBall. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know about other bizarro fan theories we should cover. Also, I'm currently accepting love letters in the form of Mr. Bean NFTs.